Uh. Hey guys, how is everybody doing? And welcome back to my Christopher Nolan review series with the next film, Inception. Now, whenever I kind of seem to rewatch this movie, it's kind of like I watch it again for the very first time because I seem to forget how fucking awesome this movie is. My first time watch of this movie was the first time I did this Christopher Nolan review series about 3 years ago now. That was the first time I had ever watched it. That's the first time I got onto that train because I don't remember why I never really watched the movie. And then I watched it and I was like, dude, that movie was fucking awesome. Why haven't I watched it before? And then about a year goes by and I decide to rewatch it out of boredom. And then I loved it again. I hadn't seen it in about 2 years now. And I was like, I'm excited to watch it. I know I liked it, but I don't know. I don't know. Basically. And then I watched it last night and holy shit, I always forget how fucking awesome this movie is. Also, a little bit of audio warning. If you hear booms in the background, that's fireworks. Because for some stupid fucking reason, I decided to record a video at 10:30 at night. What is wrong with me? Starting off with my positives on Inception, and my first positive on Inception is the cast. The cast in this movie is absolutely jam-packed, which a lot of Christopher Nolan movies are when you look at like the Dark Knight trilogy. I've talked about the cast in that and how you got so many great names to play certain characters that it's unbelievable. But in this movie, it's just awesome to see so many big name actors in this heist movie. You got freaking Leonardo DiCaprio, who is one of the best actors working today. Did I say DiCaprio or Da Vinci? I think I said DiCaprio, right? I think I did. I trust myself enough. And then you got Tom Hardy in this movie as well, who is a huge. Oh, I'm a huge fan of that of him, especially in the next movie I'm going to be talking about. And then you also got Michael Caine in a little small role. You got the dude that's in The Dark Knight Rises that plays the Robin character. I forget his name. And then you got God, who else is in this movie? There's so many great actors, but either ways, you have such a great cast in this movie that just makes this movie so enjoyable and makes this movie so endlessly rewatchable, and it makes you just like you don't really know much about these characters outside of Leonardo DiCaprio. Leonardo DiCaprio is kind of really the only character you kind of get some sort of development in, but the rest of them are kind of just, there or whatever. You also got Killian Murphy in this movie. I guess I should have mentioned that because, he's a big name in Hollywood now. But outside of Leonardo DiCaprio's character, you don't really know much about these characters, but you don't really care, but you just like them because of the person that plays them, whether it's Tom Hardy, the guy that's in Dark Knight Rises, I forget his name. I always like him. This guy's weird. I always see him in movies, but I never remember his name. I know he's in 500 Days of Summer. I fucking hate that movie. And then you also got The Dark Knight Rises. Those are the movies I always recognize this guy from, and also Inception, obviously. But whenever I see this dude, I love him, but I can never fucking remember his name for some weird reason. And I always talk about Tom Hardy. Tom Hardy is one of the best actors, especially on physicality wise when it comes to his physical performances, whether it's Warrior, Dark Knight Rises, whatever. This guy really physically gets ready for a role, and just even like he has that charm in this movie. That's what his character kind of is. He's like the British charm of the movie. And then Killian Murphy, he's kind of like the subject of this movie. He's the guy that they're all going after, and he doesn't really have like a huge role, and it's not one of his best performances by any means. But he's it's always a joy to see Killian Murphy. Hell, I loved him before Oppenheimer even came out because I really like him in 28 Days Later and stuff like that, and all these other small projects, which I'm glad to see he's still doing today because he's still working on the 28 Years Later movies, which hopefully we get that third movie. And if we don't, I'm gonna cry. I really will, because Bone Temple, that was the fucking shit right there. But either ways, outside of that, but I really enjoy this cast. This cast is absolutely jam packed, and it shouldn't be a surprise because a lot of Nolan movies have a huge cast. But just to see them in this type of movie, in this heist like film, it's just fucking mind boggling how many great actors they got for this movie. And I kind of talked about this a lot in my Memento review at how Christopher Nolan does like a very unique way of doing a revenge story that isn't, generic or repetitive or, somewhat boring. But in this movie, he does a very unique way of doing a heist movie and an action movie. Now, we have a lot of heist movies or spy movies or whatever out there. I just got done talking about Sean Connery's James Bond movies. You got the Jason Bourne franchise. You got John Wick. You got Mission Impossible. You have these like all these heist spy movie like films that are all kind of the same with great action, great characters or whatever. But Christopher Nolan does what he does, and he makes this movie different and unique in this subgenre to make you pay attention to this movie and make you enjoy this movie to where like when people are like, oh, I want to watch a good heist movie, like you always think of like the generic ones or a good spy movie or whatever. But Christopher Nolan basically creates his own subgenre in this in the heist subgenre. That's why I've always really enjoyed this movie because how different and unique it is from other action movies and heist movies. Shut the fuck up, phone. God, so many noises going on. There's fireworks, there's my phone, whatever. So much is going on. But I've always really enjoyed this movie just for how different and unique it is. And that's what Christopher Nolan always does best. He takes something that's, could be generic or different or, well known. Like you got comic book genre, you got heist genre, you got revenge genre, but he takes it and makes it his own and makes it different and unique. And that's exactly what he does in this movie, just like he did with Memento. And, I've talked a lot about Christopher Nolan's scores, mostly the Dark Knight trilogy, which is one of the most popular movie scores in all of cinema. Which I don't really feel like a lot of people talk about the score in Inception. They more talk about that big, wave sound like boom or whatever the fuck it is. I'll probably end up playing it on here. But I honestly feel like no one talks about the score for Inception, especially the score time at the very end of the movie. That is one of my all-time favorite scores, and it makes sense because Hans Zimmer helped compose this movie, which you can tell. That man seems to compose a lot of my favorite scores. He does Man of Steel, he does The Dark Knight, he does Inception, he does so many great scores, and no one really seems to be talking about this one, or maybe people do, and I'm just not in that camp for some weird reason. But the score in this movie is just so damn good. And I already mentioned the one with Time, which only plays at the very end of the movie, but that one score at the end is what is the one that always gravitates towards me, and that's the one I always think about when I think about this soundtrack because that score is just so damn good. Not only just as a score or just on a movie level or whatever, make you feel the scene, which going along with that, it has like this big emotional beat of like uplifting and hope in a way, something similar to Man of Steel, where it kind of has this hope, uplifting like feel to it because Leonardo DiCaprio's character finally gets to go home and see his kids, which that's his main goal throughout the whole movie. He wants to do this mission so he can go home to his kids because people believe he murdered his wife or whatever, and he needs to do this mission to basically get home or whatever. And when that score's playing at the very end, you get this hopeful like feel, and that's what this whole movie's been about. So that score alone makes this movie, and obviously the main score is great, but that time score has always been with me my entire life for some, not my entire life, but ever since I watched this movie, it's been part of my life ever since. And it should be no shock at all that this movie ended up winning Best Visual Effects at the Academy because the effects of the dream world and just the visual effects throughout this whole movie are just so fucking good of how they bring the dream world to life. Like the beginning of the movie, which it's always been known for this iconic shot. I just messed up my hair. It's always been known for that iconic shot where the world is basically just tilting onto its side or whatever, and then they start to walk up it. This movie has always been known for that one shot. Whenever you see this movie or whenever someone talks about it, everybody remembers that shot. But even outside of that, of like the scenes of like where they're like falling into the water in the van and in just slow motion, they're just like bobbing up and down in the van, and then in the fight sequences they're fighting and the action and the awesome sequence when they're fighting in that like apartment or hotel hallway or whatever. Just the effects there are awesome. Just the effects of them bringing this world to life, and then like in the beginning of the movie when Leo gets dunked in the water, and then the whole like room just starts to get like plastered with water, like there's like this huge wave of water just coming into the world about to kill everybody, which basically happens to him when he gets dunked in the tub or whatever. But just the effects of everything in this movie is just so fucking good that it I have no shock whatsoever that it won best visual effects at the Academy, which deservingly so, because the effects throughout this whole movie are fucking amazing and awesome, to where like this is something like you never really see in other films. That's what makes Inception, Inception. That's what makes this movie good, and that's what makes this movie popular, because this is something you haven't seen before in a movie, and I'll get to this later, but this is just something that you've never seen before, especially on effects wise. Sure, there are better effects in other movies, but for what this movie is and what this story is, you're never going to see something like this again. Kind of going along with the not apartment, the hotel fight sequence. The action in this movie from beginning to end is just so damn good. To where I've always kind of had an issue with the Dark Knight trilogy with like the action, because now obviously, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad whatsoever. I would even go as to say it's mediocre. I would just say to go that it could be better. Like, I like it, I enjoy it, I think it's good, but I do think it could be better. And this movie just makes that point. Because I always watch, whenever I watch this movie, God, excuse me, Jesus fucking Christ. Whenever I watch this movie and I see the action and I see, the fight sequences or the shootouts or whatever it is, I always see that. I'm like, why couldn't we have something like this in the Dark Knight trilogy? The action in this movie alone is really damn good and really damn enjoyable, and to where you know you are hooked on it. Like, whenever you think of an action movie, not a lot of people think of Inception because they think of it more of like a sci-fi thriller or whatever, but the action in this movie is just really damn good, to where I've always wondered, where was this in the Dark Knight trilogy? Again, not that the Dark Knight trilogy's action sequences are bad or whatever, but I've always wondered, why couldn't it have been like this? Because the action in this movie is awesome. Especially like from the moment this movie begins, the action basically kicks off, and it's fucking awesome. And just so many other sequences, whether it's Leo running away from someone or the hotel fight sequence or just simple shootouts or whatever, the action from this movie beginning to end has always just been so much fun and so entertaining that I've always kind of wondered, where has this been? Like, why hasn't Nolan put this in his other movies? Now, it's been a little bit since I've rewatched Dark Knight Rises, which I'll be watching that right after I'm done making this video, but I've always kind of wondered, where has this been in his other movies and his other action movies, which, again, the action in the Dark Knight trilogy isn't bad. I just do think it could be better, especially when you see this movie. And my final positive, and this probably should have been my first positive, if we're honest, but my final positive is just the concept of this movie. The concept of this movie is just so unique and awesome that it kind of makes you wonder, how did Christopher Nolan just come up with something like this? How did you come up with the idea of some of the heist film where people go into into like this deep sleep and basically fuck with the dreamer's mind to basically get answers out of him, to get money or whatever, rob him, because these are thieves, obviously, and that's what a heist movie is. They're thieves. But I've always kind of just sat around and wondered, how did he just come up with such a brilliant idea of this? And that just shows you the brilliant mind of Christopher Nolan, because this guy comes up with ideas and stories and concepts that no one else would probably ever think of. You got movies like Memento, with the movie being told backwards or out of place. You got movies like this where people like kind of wonder how you just think of like a dream world type thing. And then you got Interstellar, which sure, it might be a generic story, but like the way he tells it is so different from others. Then you got movies like Tenet, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I do like the idea of the movie. But that's just the beauty and the magic of Christopher Nolan. This man just comes up with great concepts, great ideas that just makes you sit around and wonder, how the fuck did he come up with something so genius? Moving on from that, I do have one mixed element, and honestly, it's not even a me issue. It could be a full audience issue. My one mixed aspect is, I do think this movie can get confusing. Whenever they try to explain limbo or how the dream world works, like how you can't think of certain places because of these reasons or whatever, which I can't even remember why, if I'm completely honest. But I do think that the movie can get confusing. I've actually met some people saying they don't like this movie because it is confusing. And I can completely understand that. I can understand why you don't think that this movie is good because of the confusion. However, if you really sit down and really pay attention and really watch this movie and try to enjoy it, you will really enjoy it and you will fully understand it. Now, for me, even when I do pay attention, I do feel like there's some things that just doesn't make any sense, and I'm like, okay, that's a little confusing. Could have been explained better, or whatever. This is the movie. There's obviously going to be people out there that do understand it. Hell, I'll probably watch a YouTube video or some sort of like theory explanation video that makes me understand the movie. But I still really enjoy it. There's moments where I do fully understand it, and honestly, I pretty much understand the whole movie. Just at times, I'm like, it could be a little confusing. Also, I know in my last time I talked about this movie, I explained the ending. I'm not going to do that this time because I feel like it's pretty fucking obvious of what the ending means. All in all, guys, I really enjoy Inception. Hell, I fucking love this movie. Hell, I loved it.
Order. Hell, I loved it.
Uh, but yeah, sorry, didn't mean to make that joke, but whatever, I made it. But I really love Inception. This is one of the best Christopher Nolan movies. It's up there for being my all-time favorite with The Prestige and a certain one, which is a huge hot take. But I love Christopher Nolan. I love Inception. This movie is just fucking awesome. And if you have not seen this movie, please do yourself a favor and watch it. It can get confusing at times, but trust me, this movie's pretty fucking good. So, what do you guys think about Inception? Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Do you like this movie? Do you not like this movie? Do you not like this movie because it's confusing? Or is this one of your all time favorites just like me? Let me know in the comments below and we shall talk about it. If you like this video, like it. If you love it, subscribe to notifications so you will get notified for all of my latest videos and for my rest of my Christopher Nolan review series. Thank you all so much for watching once again, and as always, I'll see you all next time.